Okay. All right. There's nobody in here besides some weirdo named Cage, but we're going to be doing this for posterity too. So I will talk like there's 10 million people in the audience because you never know when somebody might be watching us. Hello and welcome to the That's Not Trek Watch Party podcast. I'm your one host, EBC, also known as Scotty, and directly below me, or maybe beside me, depending on how your window is arranged, is my other co host, the beautiful Short and Sweet. Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am. I got. You might have noticed that I look a little less fuzzy. I got in a fight with a weed whacker, and it did not go well for me. So yeah,
It's the
uh,
summer look.
exactly. It was so hot and sweaty and nasty that I just had to get rid of all that shag carpet. Um, So in any case, if you have not seen this before, basically what we're doing is we're watching all of the new Star Trek that CBS and Paramount have come out with in the past 6 years, ever since they started with wanting to revive the series, or rather the franchise, with Star Trek Discovery. And a lot of people over the years have been of the mind that anything new that comes out in the form of Star Trek is just absolute crap, for any different reason. Like, it doesn't match Gene Roddenberry's vision of what Star Trek was supposed to be, starting back in 1966 when the original series came out, or they don't believe it fits the canon well enough, or just so many different reasons they come up with, and that's why I named it this. That's not real Trek, because that's what they often say. Well, that's not real Trek. Um, so my thoughts on it are very simple. If you like Star Trek as a franchise, as a storyline that spans now 60 years almost, you have to understand that no matter what your principles are, no matter what your expectations are, it's not going to be exactly what you hoped it would be, including storylines that are as good as you would hope. So the way I look at it is almost any new Trek is good Trek, unless they are trying to specifically go out of their way to destroy the franchise, which I don't think they have. Even with someone like Les Moonves running CBS over the last several years, that's not their intent. Their intent, just like with any TV show, any movie, is let's make money. How do we make money? Well, like for instance, J.J. Abrams, who did the first two newer Star Trek movies, the one that came out in 2009 and I think it was 2012. He breathed new life into a dying franchise. The 10th Star Trek movie, that was it escapes my mind right now. The one where Data dies, uh,
Nemesis.
Nemesis.
Yeah.
Um, that did not do well in the theaters. In fact, it was so many of the critics said it was just absolutely horrible. A lot of the fans said it was horrible. I thought it was pretty halfway decent, but at least as far as a business is concerned, it did not do well in the theaters. So J.J. Abrams took that and turned the whole thing around and breathed brand new life into a franchise that was dying, because they kept trying to harangue themselves into a canon that made it more and more difficult to produce Star Trek while trying to remain true to everything that had come before it in the previous 40 years. And he succeeded. It was very well, or did very well in the theaters. And I think with CBS and Paramount, obviously they're trying to make as much money as possible by cranking out all this new stuff. But from what I've seen, even though it does not really match old Trek, they did a great job of continuing the story to continue to build upon what had come before. Especially as we're going to see in Discovery, um, uh, mentioning story tropes such as gay marriage or uh, the situation with not assuming people's genders and how that comes into play, because those are the issues in our society today. And in that regard, I am almost wholly ecstatic about how New Star Trek does, in fact, match Gene Roddenberry's vision, because that's what he was doing back in the 60s, was taking the political and sociological issues of the day and telling stories that would bring attention to them and resolve those kinds of issues. And that's still happening with the newer Trek. So, from my perspective, frankly, I don't know what the hell they're talking about when they say that's not real Trek or fits their specific vision, 100% perfectly of what they want it to be. Uh, and almost entirely, I have enjoyed every single new thing that has come out over the last 30 years since they decided to do Next Generation, and that's the whole point. These people are the same people that back in 1987 were saying, "Oh, Next Generation, that's not real Trek." Well, here we are, 30 years later, and yes, it is. Um, so, in any case, that's my thoughts on it. Veronica, did you have any of your own thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, it's very similar. As anything, the franchise was dead for what, maybe almost 20 years before we got any new stories, any new material coming out. And it was like anything at that point was something to be excited about. And, J.J. Abrams, he took it in a unique way and he was like, well, I don't have to follow anything because I just made this alternate universe over here. And I think a lot of it is because people are so they are expecting the same stories, the same facts and everything. And they're not being open-minded,
Yes.
and it's kind of like that's what Star Trek is about, is being open-minded.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I haven't watched much of the new stuff. We have watched through, I think, halfway through season 2 of Discovery. But yeah, you just see people, oh well, oh, that's not real trash. Oh, the new stuff, oh, blah blah, it's all garbage. And it's like, are you being open-minded about it?
Yeah. Um, it's just so it's almost like there's some kind of like tribalism that goes on. I think psychologically speaking, where people just go, they want to be part of a tribe, and they find the people that agree or disagree with them. So they'll, if they hate the new Trek, then they'll go find all the people that hate the new Trek, and if they like it, then they find those people. But either way, it's you're everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But if you don't like it, okay, say something and then shut the fuck up. You don't have to go, oh well, that's not real Trek. Nobody, they're just ruining the entire franchise. Come off it, get off your high
Internet
and mighty
trolls.
horse, and yeah. So yeah. All right. Well, enough of that then. So basically, what we're doing, I did not have this. Let me go into my thing real quick and get the information. Where did I put this? Here. Um, so basically, what I wanted to do with this, we're going to be doing approximately 2 episodes a week. Where did I put it? Come on, where are you? There it is. Okay. Um, Approximately 2 episodes a week. Now, if we did everything that has come out from Paramount and CBS in the last 6 years, it's going to take over a full year of 52 weeks, watching approximately 2 episodes a week to do the whole thing. And that's what we're going to try to do. There may be a few weeks that we're not going to be able to do it because of scheduling or whatever, but we're going to try to do this every Thursday night starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to try to do 2 episodes a week so that it's not too lengthy. And we're just going to discuss and see, how it fits in and what we thought of each episode as we go on. So this first week we're starting with season 1, episodes 1 and 2 of Star Trek Discovery, and that's the Vulcan Hello and Battle at the Binary. And then what I did with this order was two things. Very quickly, you're going to find out that we're dealing with two separate eras. The first era of Star Trek history deals with starting with Discovery, that is begins in the year 2256, and it is long before, I don't want to say long, like 10 years or so before the original series with Kirk and Spock started. So in producing these newer Star Treks, CBS and Paramount created a spin-off called Strange New Worlds that's going to cover the majority of the first 5-year mission of the Enterprise. See, because when the original Star Trek started with Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, that was actually the second 5-year mission of the Enterprise, but with a newer captain and slightly different crew. So we're now going to go back to when the Enterprise was brand new and cover it from that, with a Captain Pike, and Uhura is there, and several other people that have been known in Star Trek history, but they haven't really been explored. But we're not actually going to get to Strange New Worlds here for a while because of the timeline and how these episodes play out. So for the majority of what I laid out here in this schedule, it's going to pretty much follow the timeline, but I'm also going to be showing and we're jumping around and doing a few things here or there so that relevant information is at hand to be able to know what we need to know with what is coming next. So at least for the first season here of Discovery, it's going to go in order, but we're then going to jump around and do a few other things. And it will be approximately 2 hours every Thursday night, unless we have a scheduling conflict, and then we will go from there. All right. Are we ready, V?
Ready.
Okay, so the first one is The Vulcan Hello, Star Trek Season 1, Episode 1. And get this right here. Picture. So you also... you said you saw through about halfway of season 2 of Discovery. I believe I've seen quite a bit more of what we are about to see over the course of this next year than you have, but I haven't seen all of it myself either. Like, I haven't seen season 2 of Picard. Nobody's seen Strange New Worlds yet, unless you just watched it because it just started coming out. I haven't seen Prodigy. I only watched season 1 of Lower Decks. And Discovery, I didn't see season 4 yet. So I have seen some of that, and some of it's going to be new for me as well. But you haven't seen quite as much of it, so like if I have seen it, that I'm going to try to take a little more of that kind of a perspective. I've already seen this, and now I'm seeing it again, while you're seeing it for the first time. So that's about it. All right, so here we go with season 1, episode 1, The Vulcan Hello. And this also brings in, I will note before we start this, a character who was most well known before Star Trek Discovery for her appearance in The Walking Dead. Sasha in The Walking Dead, she plays the main character on Discovery for all 4 seasons. And I remember she was very excited to let that be known when she was leaving The Walking Dead because she died in the show, and then immediately
Spoilers.
started this project in the yeah, I know, in Star Trek Discovery. All right, so that's about it, and we'll see you back at the end of the Vulcan Hello. All right, so that's the end of episode one. Um, yeah, leaves you on a cliffhanger there. Oh my god, all the Klingons are around. Uh, so the big thing, first of all, is that before Discovery came out initially, 6 years ago, they teased that this covered a portion of Star Trek history that has been oftentimes mentioned in previous series but never explored. And that turned out to be the Klingon War, which, again, when we uh, join the original series with Kirk and Spock, the war has already been concluded by that point, and they're still on this Cold War tension, but they're not actively at war. So that was the developers' wish, was to completely explore, at least in this first season of Discovery, how the Klingon War started and how it ended eventually, and essentially that's what we're looking at, is that Burnham starts the Klingon War. That bitch. Um, so the other thing coming into play is the Klingons being redesigned yet again. Now this is where I think a lot of the angst, so to speak, against the creators comes in. Is that it's like, why can't you just leave the Klingons alone? We had what, the smooth-headed but greasy-looking facade from the original series. We had the one that's probably most people are familiar with, is the Next Generation style that then persisted through Voyager, Deep Space Nine, even a good majority of Enterprise, and most of the movies. And then J.J. Abrams, with I believe the second movie that he created, did a redesign and got tons and tons of flack over it. And now we have yet a fourth iteration of this. Um, so, Veronica, what are your thoughts on how, not only the redesign of the Klingons, but uh, why and wherefore? What's going on with all of that, and why was it necessary or not necessary?
Well, I don't know that it was necessary. But I don't know why it gets so much hate, because it's like, okay, we've gone and makeup has evolved. So obviously they can do a lot more. And if you think about like the interviews of the actors who previously played Klingons, they're coming in at 3 in the morning and going through like a 5 hour makeup session just to get into character, into costume. And it's like, why would you want to put somebody through that if they don't have to be put through that at this point? And with this being a new series, I think that you can make little changes, to suit your vision. And I don't know if people, maybe like, because it opens the whole series. You see it right away, and I think that was like an instant trigger for some people. It was just an instant, oh, I'm going to write this off right now
Yeah,
because of this one little thing.
and maybe everything else that came after that, they saw that and they're just like, oh, CBS is screwing it up. We're not going to see anything they done.
Right.
Um, the way I look at it is, yeah, I don't think it was necessary. And I haven't read anything or watched any videos on like maybe why they did that. but uh, I think what they were trying to do um, was not necessarily from like a makeup perspective, because I can probably say that the time that it took to put on whatever they did for Discovery took just as long, if not more, because they're trying to present an entirely new look that doesn't even come close to anything we've seen before. And I think that's the only reason they did that, was because they wanted it to they purposefully wanted it to be something completely brand new, and we'll just give it the Klingon name. Well, if that's what you're gonna do, that's fine, but you should also make it known that that's what you're going to do, because to just call it a Klingon and give it a brand new look and not try to justify that in any way maybe is not the best course of action. Um,
Well, and I wonder if it was like to create that controversy, to get people talking about it, and to get people to tune in because they're
yeah.
trying to see what the differences are.
Uh, how is that? All advertising is good advertising.
Yeah.
Draws attention. Um, Either way, at least as far as like I'm concerned, where I'm trying to, how shall I say, analyze the appearance and what the Klingons are presented in this, is I think they went way overboard with what they were trying to accomplish. Like, there's certain things that stick out to me, such as the uh, outfits that they are wearing, looking like some of the most complicated pieces of clothing that have ever existed. Um, the fact that their ship doesn't appear to actually have stations. They're all just standing around on a catwalk, yelling at each other, and not actually accomplish anything. They're literally there's if this is a ship and this is a crew, where are the stations? Why aren't they at their stations when they're about to go into battle? It just seemed like they went overboard in trying to present this beautiful, unique thing, and logistically, it just doesn't work.
Too many changes.
Yes, but or just if you're going to do some of these changes, tone it down a bit, or at least make it work from that logistical perspective. Okay, somebody's got to fire the phasers. Okay, well, yell down to that guy 3 stories down in the ship who's actually at a panel and can fire the hit the button. Um, and I think on that same note, now this comes in a little bit later. We're going to find out why all of a sudden, in this era that actually came before uh, the original series, we now all of a sudden have clear glass touchscreen and panels and holograms for
Yeah.
communication and things like that. That does come in a little bit later. We find out
Oh,
into
okay.
season 2 why that's a thing. They actually did write that into the storyline, why it's a thing, and then in the original series it is not. So that is part of the story arc, and we will find that out later as we get into season 2 about that.
That's good to know because that was one thing that bothered me initially when I watched it, and I kind of forgot about it until this rewatch, and I jotted that down as a note, like that doesn't happen anymore, you know?
Right. And clearly the technology gap between something that was produced in 1966 and now in 2016, they're wanting to present something that's modern and fresh, but if you're trying to present something that fits into canon, you can't be doing that. They did account for that, and we will find out what's happening there. I don't want to spoil it though. And The only other reason that I could see somebody is going to be mad about this not really fitting canon is when J.J. Abrams came out with his Star Trek movie in 2009 and did the exact same thing, but he didn't address that. So that was my main beef with
Mhm.
2009 Star Trek was you can't tell me that in 20 years of an alternate timeline that they were trying to present that the Enterprise technology had changed that much. So he just basically kind of threw caution to the wind and said, "The hell with the canon. We're just going to
Right.
produce what we think is best." And I could see why people might be mad about that. But at the same time, it's like it's still visually stunning, and it's still the type of thing that you might want to see if you're a technology nerd on a modern starship. Is the kind of things that they presented. So that will, like I said, that will be addressed a little bit into season two, and then by the end of season two, we know exactly why that is occurring. So, otherwise, what are you thinking of the storyline that's being presented here with the beginning of the Klingon War?
I really like that they went back and they dove into this. I think it was kind of an untapped era that it makes for really good storytelling. I mean, you've got first episode, you've got a mutiny, you've got murder, you got
Right.
a cliffhanger, a war is about to start. Like that's exciting storyline. That's good storytelling, and it's interesting to see where it goes.
See, and we're going to find out in the next episode. I don't mind saying because it's not really that much of a spoiler. The character of Michael Burnham is the Starfleet's first mutineer. So she's the
Mhm.
first person that's going to face uh, the music for actually causing mutiny on a Starfleet starship, and that had never been done before. So what are the ramifications of that, and how is she going to deal with that as a person as she moves on?
Mhm.
And all of the other characters, how they then have this way of interacting with her from now on because she is the first mutineer. So that's very important to the storyline moving forward. Um, the only other thing that I really liked is, first of all, we've been introduced to at least one new species, and that's Doug Jones' character, Saru, and we've never seen this species before. He looks pretty odd. He's extremely tall and thin and lanky, and he kind of walks weird. We're gonna get much more into that because they look at the Kelpians in very specific detail as we move on, and he his species plays a huge role, especially into season two, as to um, the interaction between the characters, their species, and the overreaching story arc. So keep your eye on him and watch a little bit of, or take mental notes of what he's talking about when he speaks about his species. All right. Anything else that comes to mind about the first episode?
I really did like that they went with a main character who's not the captain
Mm-hmm.
and are building it around because every other story up until this point has been, that you've got the captain and the relationship between the captain and all the other officers and characters on the ship, but this is really kind of different in that you're going to see everything from another character's viewpoint. So I
Yeah,
do I do appreciate that they went that direction.
and I think in most of Star Trek history up until this point, uh, they would have like episodes that did center around the lesser characters, but it was always, like you said, I
A
did not
one-off.
notice that. Yeah, one off or and of course we also had, for the most part, up until this point, we never had season long story arcs until Enterprise season three that dealt with the oh Zindi. And that was the first time that Star Trek had ever explored a season long story arc, or an overarching story arc that uh, is going to be the main focus of something like this, where now we're dealing with the Klingon War over the entire season. Um, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Our story focuses on Michael Burnham for the majority of that. That is not a captain. So that's interesting. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think we got all things I jotted down, so
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and start the second episode, which is Battle at the Binary Stars. Did I get that right? Yes. Battle at the
Yeah.
Binary Stars. So this is actually the start of the war. We just had the Klingons lighting their torch, which called the other houses to call. They basically just showed up at this request of this first one that is being commanded by Takuvma, and now we're actually going to see the battle ensue. All right, so here we go. Just before the credits. Okay. So first of all, Burnham sucks at her job. Just absolutely terrible. What is she? 0 for 3 on first of all not killing the Klingon at the beginning. Then failed uh, mutiny attempt, and now attempting to fix all of that by going onto the Klingon ship and capturing Takuvma, and instead she actually kills him when she
And,
didn't have to either.
and ends up killing the captain.
Yeah. So like just burn him 0 for 3 and yeah. Major character flaw with that. I mean, I'd say that what's her name, the actress, pulled it off well. What was supposed to be written into the storyline, but I think as far as like the overreaching character story arc for Burnham, she's just so strong-headed, so unrelentingly uh, constantly thinks she's right that it's like a huge flaw in who she is as a person that she doesn't even begin to recognize until much later. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, she's definitely just so headstrong and not willing to listen to any type of reason. It's got to be her way or no way. And yeah, fatal flaw there.
Especially since it appears that she's either very wrong a good portion of the time or hasn't considered all of the things that she needs to know in order to make an informed decision. She's just going off of what she does have and goes, "This has got to be the way."
Right, right.
You know, uh, Saniqua Martin Green, not whatever you just put there in the chat page. Um, and I'm terrible with names, so I'm going to be doing that all through this whole thing. Yeah, what's her face? That person there. Um, I did find it interesting that they essentially remedied the situation by cutting the head off of the snake, and crippling the the barge of the dead by this method that I don't think we've seen that kind of action before in a Star Trek setting. Just basically
Yeah,
send.
not to that extent.
No, I thought there was the part where um, the ship runs into the Europa and basically tears them in half. That was reminiscent to me of what happened in Nemesis, uh,
Yeah.
and how they kind of like just they said what's worse than having a space battle? Oh, let's just run these two massive ships into each other and see what happens.
Sure.
Uh, and aside from that, I think it's interesting that this this is how they decided to lay out the storyline as to how the Klingon War actually occurred. And yes, they had a blank slate, but Uh, they wanted to build this so much around Burnham's story that they literally made her the cause and the effect for all of this. What did you think?
Right. I mean, I thought it was well done. I do like the direction that they took the story. Um, and calling back to like that style of uh, how they disabled the ship, how they like sent that torpedo on. It reminded me of like on the small scale when in Next Generation when they're fighting the Borg, and they send the little nanos
Mhm.
up into the ship to destroy it from the inside. So I do kind of like that, and I don't know. I think it's interesting to see how it plays out. They have free reign basically because it's not really defined anywhere else how this all started. So it's kind of like, well, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, so that's basically where we leave things at the end of this week is the Shenzhou is now disabled and abandoned. They have abandoned ship. The Europa has been destroyed, and what's that guy's name? That's the
Brett
deck
Anderson.
Brett Anderson. Yeah, he lasted a long time in this.
Well, I mean, even they've even killed off Giorgio, like,
Right.
oh, which I think was maybe a bit too soon. But I think they're going for shock value.
And that to me is reminiscent of how The Walking Dead would regularly kill off main characters, and they were basically saying, "Oh, well, that's what's really going to give it shock value, or just in general entertainment value throughout the whole series is you don't expect this person to die until you see it, and then you're like, oh, this is how they're going to do this. So you're right. Now Giorgio is dead, and essentially this sets the stage for the rest of everything that comes after it. These two episodes now, the war has begun. It's totally Burnham's fault because she just sucks at her job, and now everybody has to deal with the ramifications of this. Uh, so what are you going to be looking for moving forward?
Well, knowing like where they go a little bit with the storyline, not to give anything away, but um, maybe just how her character develops. If that headstrong mentality stays with her throughout, because I know that she, gets into a relationship and kind of has like a little bit of a redemption arc from what I saw. So it'll be interesting to see like if her character changes throughout the events that are coming next.
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing is that the way Sonequa Martin Green played Burnham, she was trying to portray that Burnham had been raised to the best of their ability as a Vulcan. So you saw that when they flash back to 7 years ago and she's first arriving on the Shenzhou, that she's well, first of all, egotistical and really mean, at least at first, until she realizes, oh, maybe Giorgio isn't as bad as we thought. Maybe this whole situation isn't going to be as bad as we thought, and then she starts to loosen up a little bit. But uh, Green was trying to, I think, portray how just like Spock in the original series, there was this constant battle, internal battle between the Vulcan side and the human side. And unlike Spock, her human side would often win out, even though she didn't want it to necessarily. And then she'd try to revert back to the Vulcan persona and go back and forth. And
And just
it's
create a mess.
exactly, and it's so often that her emotions win out when they shouldn't. So I think moving forward, what we're really going to want to see is if she's going to have any type of character development, is it going to be that she's going to win that battle more often than not and start to regain a level head, or gain a level head, basically, because she really hasn't. Or at the very least, in the last 7 years serving under Philippa Georgiou, she has uh, portrayed enough of stability and command, and the ability to do what was asked of her until it reached this point. And now it's all falling apart to the point where within a 24, 36 hour period, her entire Starfleet career has been ruined. All because she was doing what she thought was best.
Not to mention her colleagues and her friends are now looking at her like, well, you caused all this. This is all your fault.
Right. And again, that's all part and parcel with this. Now that we have seen the war begin at Burnham's behest, basically, uh, everybody else in this series that we come across having to deal with those ramifications, including things that we may never have seen otherwise occur in the Trek history universe, because of this very specific layout of events that has occurred the way it has been uh, presented to us. So that's when what we'll see going into next week, which is Discovery Season 1, Episodes 3 and 4, which is Context is for Kings, and The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. The people starting to deal with these ramifications, including our one of the best captains ever, or at least the way he was played, and that is Jason Isaacs' character that we're going to see for the first time starting in the next episode. So, any other thoughts before we shove off here?
Oh, Connor.
Oh yeah.
What color was his shirt?
Uh, blue? I don't know. Red?
They break all the tropes.
Red from his blood.
Yeah, red from the blood. But yeah, it's like I was like, they didn't even set him up in the. Was he in the first episode?
He was, but they didn't really give him much in the way of on
Yeah.
screen or talking. He's just kind of like one of those side characters that's a bridge member.
It's like, whoop, he's here, whoop,
Yep.
and now he's gone.
And but he will come into play later.
Interesting.
We will
Okay.
see Connor come back, and in a much different setting, shall I say?
Okay.
Uh,
How far down is that? I don't know if that's
I want to
past
see.
where I watched.
No, because if you saw into the middle of season 2, I think we wrap up this specific not timeline, storyline. This season long story arc at the end of season 1. So you definitely will see Connor again, and spoilers, we're also going to see Georgiou again. Maybe she's dead, maybe she's not.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a ride, and Connor will play a much bigger role later. We will see him come back, and apparently he has survived. Maybe
He lives.
We'll see. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up. We will be back next week and watch episodes 3 and 4.
Awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty. See you later. Bye.
Bye.